Hey folks, Dr. Robert Pritchard, Superintendent of the South Orangetown Central School District. I'm joined with a few of my colleagues this morning to talk about the 2022 capital project referendum that we're going to be putting forward for public approval on March 8th, 2022 via a referendum. And we're hopeful that if you are eligible to vote, that you will all come out to participate in this very important process, this very important project that considers the capital improvement to our school district, much needed capital project improvement to our existing infrastructure. The capital improvements are centered on the development, the improvement of our critical infrastructure to include HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, as well as classroom renovations in all 4 of our school buildings. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce the folks here joining us this morning. Mr. Jack Rallo, who is our Director of Facilities, Mr. Mike Vespi, who's our School Business Administrator, and our project architect, Ms. Lauren Tarcio from Clark, Patterson, and Lee. So next slide. Okay, so why are we meeting tonight? Great question. We're very excited about this project. As you can probably tell, it's been several years in the making. As far as our planning has taken place over a number of years, but we really started to pick up speed with the development of this project this fall. The Board of Education held several workshops to develop a scope of work for this project that we think will be vital to the preservation of the very important public resources that are our schools. The purpose of this session is to review the scope, the timeline, and the financing of the proposed 2022 capital improvements project with all of our community, because you're all impacted by this. The Board of Education, as I just mentioned, has been very significant in terms of providing the fiscal stewardship, as well as representing the community. They're the elected officials, and they represent the community not just from a financial standpoint, but also from a programmatic standpoint as well. They provided tremendous vision and support to the administrative team here. But the District Facilities Committee, and we've had several board members over the years participate on this committee, has really gotten into the nuts and bolts, the particulars of the project that relates to the condition of our facilities, as well as where we feel that the facilities need to grow, evolve, and develop in order to meet the needs of our students and our communities. And in order to do that, we've met with building teams, that is to say, the teachers who work in our classrooms, the staff who work in our buildings, as well as the building level leadership, to determine what will make our buildings the most useful and to our students and to their overall development. The Board of Education really began the long-range financial and capital planning in earnest in 2018, although the roots of this project go back many, many years prior. They've reviewed all sorts of data as it relates to the building condition survey and a 5-year capital plan, which will prioritize our district needs as well as our district's desires. And we provided feedback from the Board of Education to our community. It's been a back and forth, two-way dialogue between the Board of Education, the administrative team, as well as our stakeholders, our students, and our families, to develop what we feel is a capital improvements bond for their consideration in March that will consider the present needs of our buildings and hopefully will provide a viable facilities improvement for many years to come. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Vespi, who has spearheaded the district facilities committee work since he joined us here in the district back in June. So Mike, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, and so to a continuation with what Dr. Pritchard said, there's a lot of planning and work that went into the development of this capital project, which includes our district facilities committee. And I was fortunate to come into background information and planning, that really dated back 3 to 4 years and was quite extensive. And so a lot of the prerequisite information that you would need to move forward with this project was done. Building condition surveys, which are required every 5 years, were considered. This is a document that goes to the state education department, and the district works closely with the architect to review that information. That was, a document that was heavily utilized and has a prioritization system. And so we focused on, the work that was outlined in that building condition survey. Heating surveys and HVAC presentations, heating and ventilation and air conditioning. There was a lot of extensive discussion about that topic. And as you'll see, that's the majority of the project that we're putting forward. And so there was a lot of background information and knowledge. And then a classroom condition survey where we went and evaluated every classroom in the district and made prioritized decisions based on that survey. So as part of that process, there were building tours and classroom and site visits previously. And then as we got closer in the latest round, we reviewed a lot of pictures, which we'll have going forward. But, this discussion really extensively took place in the fall over the course of 4 meetings through budget workshops and involved the entire administrative team at those meetings. So kind of transitioning into that, while I wasn't here to participate, firsthand in the building team's discussions, there was extensive planning and work that went into discussions with our principals and principals getting feedback from students. The architect was in attendance at those meetings as well as the director of facilities. And so, this was a long-standing process that was really put on hold during the pandemic, but all of that great work was in place. And ultimately, the focus of the district was to really prioritize the needs in terms of health, safety, and success for our staff and our students. And again, it was focused on factual, data-driven information based on some of these tools. But more importantly, this work aligns with the district's strategic plan, where it promotes academic success, it enhances the health and safety of our school community, and as Dr. Pritchard previously mentioned, is fiscally responsible. So it really coincides with what we do as a district. During the course of the discussion, the focus primarily is on classroom renovations and what goes into that. So we want to just briefly outline what we mean by a general classroom renovation. The first and probably most important aspect of our classrooms is to update really an outdated HVAC system that's been in place in the district for many, many, many years. And that's a new heating and ventilation and air conditioning system. Not only to replace it and modernize it, but we also look at increased efficiency. Mr. Rowell will discuss, some of this information in detail, but in general, our considerations are really bringing a lot more fresh air into the classroom and increasing the filtration. Along with the classroom work, when we're doing this other work, is to do new drop ceilings and to install new energy efficient LED lighting. There is a mandate to really abate and remove old vinyl asbestos flooring. And so where those areas are located, we're going to take care of that work. And then certainly in a lot of our classrooms, we've got casework that is still functioning and usable, but it doesn't necessarily meet the new requirements for students in wheelchairs. And so, our focus there is to replace that casework where needed and to get it in compliance. And also to have casework that's more user-friendly with regard to technology. So those are the most important aspects of some of that work. Transitioning, it's a perfect transition into, well, what about our electrical and technology outlets? We're certainly going to upgrade those, again, to meet current and modern demands and have that be more convenient. So we'll do new electrical and technology outlets as needed. And then as we're doing casework, we're going to replace, some of the plumbing fixtures in sinks and bathroom locations, not everywhere throughout the district, but in those locations where it's necessary. Along with that, when you do classroom renovations, especially the magnitude of the heating and ventilation work that we're talking about, the state education department will require you to bring everything into code in terms of fire safety. So new doors and frames and fire alarm devices. We do plan on reusing existing air conditioning units. You'll see as Ms. Tarcio talks about the scope of the project, we're going to reuse window units where necessary and where it makes sense. But while we remove those in certain areas, we're going to have to go in and repair the glass and the windows of where they currently exist, and then do some touch-up painting throughout as we do HVAC upgrades. So here's just an example of what some modernization of classrooms look like. And you can see a lot more lighting. You can see the LED lights, the flooring, and a new paint just highlights the space in terms of like neatness and freshness, and brings that additional lighting into play. You can see the casework in this photo is just very simplistic. The classroom is designed to not only have display of student work, but you've got that streamlined technology piece. That's the focal point of the classroom with movable furniture. So this is really, when we go to update our classrooms, this is kind of the look and style that we're looking for, as well as updated clock and PA system. In this particular model, the science area, again, you can see the technology at the front of the classroom, and the updated lighting. If you look carefully in the ceiling, you'll see ventilation that's modern and new, and you don't necessarily see a unit ventilator. So this is what we're going to strive for in this project. So with that, I'll turn the discussion over to Mr. Rallo to talk about in depth the most important aspect of the project, which is the HVAC upgrades.
So with the HVAC work, what we're going to do is in the renovated areas in the classrooms, everybody that's been in a classroom has seen these old unit ventilators. What our plan is to take and replace and remove those unit ventilators with a much more updated HVAC system. So where possible, we want to install a new dedicated outdoor air system. What this does is this increases filtration and fresh air, as well as bringing in much more fresh air is very important, as you'll see in the next few slides. This also, where possible, we would like to install a variable refrigerant flow system, which would provide heating and cooling for better climate control. So when I say, heating and cooling, we're not heating with one unit and cooling with another unit. We're cooling and heating with the same unit, so that we're able to control the climate in the classroom much better. And along with this, direct digital control upgrades, which allows us to see the units and the schedules and be able to work them on a computer, so we can make it much easier. So the benefits of the new HVAC system, as I said before, will have increased fresh air. This is really important in the classrooms, as you'll see in the next few slides. We'll also have improved filtration and stratification. When I talk about stratification of air, I mean the air goes around the classroom is not stagnant in one area. It's more enhanced throughout the entire classroom, which will allow for a much more comfortable experience. Again, improved classroom climate control. So by doing what we talked about with the VRF system, we'll be able to have a much more comfortable classroom. Again, with a VRF and a DOAS system, this is going to allow us to have a much better enhanced energy efficient system. The direct digital controls will allow us to have better automation and scheduling in order to optimize our performance, as well as, you know, be able to control it when it's occupied and unoccupied. You'll be able to turn them on and off. So why is indoor air quality very important? So there's been plenty of studies that we've all looked at, and I implore you to look them up as well. Indoor air quality has been known to improve test scores, reading competence, and as well as cognitive ability of the students. With fresh air coming in, increased fresh air there's been studies that have proved that cognitive ability of the students is improved greatly. Also, with the temperature control. So with much more comfortable classrooms and much more temperature control in the classrooms, there's very good evidence that students, you know, the performance goes up, as well as the absences will be decreased with temperature control. And also indoor air quality has also reduced absences that were related to infections and diseases from biological contaminants. I'm going to hand this over to Lauren Tarcio, and she'll explain the scope of work in our buildings.
So I'm going to walk you through building by building what you can expect to see with this proposed project. Starting with William O. Schaefer, as Mr. Rallo and Mr. Vespi just discussed, we have the HVAC improvements in building management control, as well as classroom renovations. We can expect to see some window repairs and painting as it relates to the HVAC. You saw some photos earlier of the window air conditioning units, and they were mounted in wooden panels. So we would be taking those out of the classrooms, because now we'll have some cooling capability, and repairing those windows, putting some more glass, adding some light to those spaces. Also at William O. Schaefer, we are looking at doing some smaller renovations throughout the project in some areas for resource rooms and ELL. And then we have site work improvements with the addition of an outdoor classroom area. So visually, you can see just some of the areas that we're expecting to tackle in this project. And the areas in red are our proposed renovations. So these are our classroom areas. And then the areas in blue are considered for our HVAC improvements only. So anything in red, you can expect a full renovation and HVAC improvements. And then we are expanding some of these areas to capitalize on being in those spaces during construction, being able to extend the HVAC system into some of these areas. And you'll notice there are some areas in white. As Mr. Vespi had noted earlier, we have done a classroom condition survey. So some of these classrooms are either already slated to be renovated as part of another project, or they were more recently renovated and meet a better criteria for that rating system. At Cottage Lane, again, I'll say it again, but there's more HVAC and there's some more minor classroom renovations here. Cottage Lane has had some more recent renovations done to the classroom, so they've scored higher on our rating system. We have the same window repairs and painting that at the other buildings. And here we're looking at doing a main entrance and security upgrade project. So what that means is relocating the main office from its current location to another area. that will allow us to create a secure vestibule. And with that, we'll be providing exterior lighting and a canopy, so the main entrance is much more predominant. We also have some other smaller renovations slated in some small spaces to create smaller reading rooms and resource rooms. And then, of course, here we will also see an outdoor classroom area and an outdoor walking path for the fitness, for a potential fitness path. So visually speaking, we have a path that goes entirely around the property. Again, the same colors are used for the areas that are renovated. So we do have a small classroom renovation, we have the main office again, and some reconfiguration for some resource rooms. But here the project is predominantly an HVAC upgrade. So everything that Mr. Rallo discussed, you can expect to see in the classrooms and the gym and the cafeteria in this building. At the middle school, same scope with the HVAC upgrades and the classroom renovations. We have the outdoor classroom as well, slated for this school, as well as a walking path that can be used by the community. In addition to that, we have some upgrades to the playing fields, so we can make sure the middle school has appropriate facilities to continue their sports program. So visually here, we're looking at most of the work happening on the third floor and some on the second floor. And there is a reason for that. When we do start these HVAC projects, they always start at the roof level. This particular system will be mounted on the roof. So we wanted to work through these projects methodically, and the Board of Ed wanted to be careful about being fiscally prudent. So we decided to phase these projects, as you'll see in the secondary level, because these buildings are much larger. So you always want to start at the top level and work your way down. So the third floor will have some classroom renovations shown in red, but mostly we have some HVAC upgrades shown in blue. And then in the language hall on the second floor, we have, which is actually at roof level in that particular wing, is some renovations to those classrooms. So again, just a reminder, anything in red, you'll see the HVAC improvements as well as classroom renovation. And in blue is proposed HVAC upgrades only. But we can also expect in these spaces to get new lighting and ceilings, because most of this work will be at the ceiling level.
And Lauren, so I think the important thing to note with the work at South Orangetown Middle School is we're excited to have our middle school kids to have the opportunity to play sports at these fields. So I think that's, really an important aspect. They currently don't have that opportunity, and based on these renovations, they will have that opportunity. So we think that's really important for the school. The other thing that, when Mr. Rallo and I and Dr. Pritchard gave the presentation to the staff, we're disappointed that we can't do all of the work at South Orangetown Middle School, but we had to make some decisions in terms of the budget. And so we hope to be able to bring back a plan to finish the work here. This is a plan that, I think we get off to a good start. I think, in terms of some of the cooling capacity, what we're going to repurpose some of the window units and other units to be able to increase cooling capacity where we can. So, we're going to take that into consideration, but we do want to get back and look at the sixth grade rooms and look at the rooms on the second floor. We do want to come back and consider getting that work done in a future project. So, this is a good start, but, we want to explain that it's not the entire building, and we do want to come back to that.
Yes, thank you. So, and on the right here, we do have the site. So as Mr. Vespi just described, we are planning to resurface the existing playing fields, make sure you have proper drainage, new sod, and regrading. And then of course, the fitness path, this one's much longer. The site is much larger, so we have the opportunity to take advantage of that and provide this path that goes around the entire property. So this is, a lot of the site work at this building is really, it's exciting because the community can also come and use these facilities. At the high school, again, we have HVAC and building management control upgrades, classroom renovations, which are really focused on the 200, 300, and 400 wings. Renovation of the auditorium. So we're looking at new seating, lighting, a sound booth, and upgrades to the stage area. And then at the site work at this particular school would be the outdoor classroom addition. So here you can see lots of red here. We've got lots of renovation in the 3 wings. We have a couple of areas where it makes sense to extend the HVAC improvements into. So we do have a fair amount of work, but as Mr. Vespi just described, there's more to come. So this is a lot of work. This is what the construction timeline looks like. It's a multi-phased project over several years. So upon a successful vote on March 8th, we would start work on the design phase. So I think it's important to note that construction will not necessarily start right away. We have to design the project. Then it has to go to the state education department for review and a building permit. Then we bid the project, so it'll take a couple of months. And then we start in the construction phase, this yellow bar that we're seeing. So we're proposing to start at the elementary level with Schaefer and CLE. As soon as we're done with the design on the first phase, we're going to start the design on the second phase, and that will run concurrently with phase 1. So phase 2 will take a little bit longer because this is at the secondary level, and you can see visually there was just a lot more work going on in those 2 buildings. But it goes through the same process. We do design, then it goes to state ed for review and approval. Then we have to bid the project through a public bidding procurement process. And then this particular phase at the secondary level is much longer because we do have, of course, much more work. And we are limited a bit with the schedule. We do want to accomplish as much work as we can in the summer months, which is very short. So that is one of the reasons for such an extended schedule. But we really intend to start work immediately upon a successful vote, and then the project is scheduled to be completed in 2027. So during construction, we do want to note that there will be provisions in place for safety. So we do have COVID-19 practices. We want to make sure the contractors are not commingling with students. We keep them separate. And really, we do want to say that the administration will work with the construction manager and the architect. We will make sure that there are no issues, and we'll keep everybody in close contact and make sure that if there are any safety concerns, that we are able to mitigate those quickly. So Mr. Vespi, can you talk about the financial considerations of the project?
Absolutely. So this reconstruction work would take place over a 15-year period. These are some of the assumptions that go into the financing. We assume that the majority of this work qualifies for building aid. And so the district is reimbursed at a rate of about 38%. And in a minute, I'll speak to the notion of using what's called a capital reserve or a savings account to offset the total cost of the project. So these are all the considerations that we reviewed in the process. And again, the board is very fiscally prudent, and we reviewed these concepts in depth. So this is a $49.9 million project that will be offset by $18 million worth of funds that are in a savings account, which would result in voting on the authorization of a bond in the amount of $31.9 million. And so this just quickly summarizes, the total cost of the project and what the actual vote consists of. So there's 2 aspects to the vote. The first one is obviously the bond authorization, but the community also has to approve the use of that $18 million that's in the savings account. When you take it into consideration these factors of what comes in building aid, and then what our principal and interest payment will ultimately be, that's the portion that actually impacts the general fund budget that is voted on in May. We think that the tax levy increase will lead to about $128 per $200,000 of assessed value. Now, keep in mind, this is assessed value. So there's a difference between what the market value of your home is versus the assessed value. So we've done what I think from a communication standpoint, a really good job on our website and in the brochure that we sent out. If you'd like to see what that impact is for your particular property, I would refer you to those documents so that you could see what that estimate is overall. Some key dates, and this really wraps up our presentation. We're going to have, just to be safe, we're going to have an additional public hearing on March 1st, which is a week before the actual vote, where we'll do a summarized version of this presentation. We're going to do that right here at South Orangetown Middle School. And then the vote is at the 4 voting locations on March 8th. And all of the information is on our website. It's in our brochure that would help you to be informed. We do have the ability for you to ask questions. We welcome your emails. Email us questions. We have some frequently asked questions on the website. So we really want this to be transparent. So if you have questions or concerns or suggestions, we welcome them at any time. And on that note, I will turn it over to Dr. Pritchard for some closing remarks, and we'll wrap up.
Great, thanks, Mr. Espy. Well, okay, so here are 2 key takeaways. And again, thank you all for having joined us on this discussion this morning. Two key takeaways. 1, these buildings belong to our community. And because they belong to you, the community, we have a responsibility to take care of these assets. 1, because they are an important asset, a public asset that periodically, just like your home, for those of you who are homeowners, you have a responsibility to take care of your property. And this property belongs to you. So that's a responsibility that we all share. Secondly, these facilities are a vital resource for our children, and the safety and well-being of our children is paramount. And for a student to walk into a classroom, to a brightly lit, well-maintained, well-organized classroom that's safe and free from any sort of physical hazards is important in terms of their development. So that's the first takeaway. So that's a responsibility that we take very seriously. And we've been working with this Board of Education for many years to get us to this point where we can certainly fulfill that promise to the community. And secondly, as Mr. Vespi just mentioned, that this is a transparent and a transparent process, and we want those of you who are going to go to the polls on March 8th to be very well informed. And we are going to avail ourselves to answer any questions that you may have, either through your mode of communication of choice. We have email, we have telephone, and Lord knows I'm certainly willing to meet with folks in person over a cup of coffee to discuss any of your concerns that you might have about this project or anything for that matter. We certainly take our jobs very seriously, and we are, as it relates to serving this community. So please reach out to us so you can make the best decision possible for this particular project. And we look forward to seeing each of you in the days ahead. And for those of you, again, who are able to vote, the polls will be open on March 8th. If you have any questions, again, we will direct you to our website at www.socsd.org/bond. Thank you and have a great day.